Hibachi isn't Japanese. The California roll isn't Japanese. That green paste next to your sushi almost certainly isn't real wasabi either. It's horseradish, mustard, and food coloring. Most of what gets sold as Japanese food outside Japan isn't really Japanese food at all. I found that out the hard way. I worked as a chef at a Japanese restaurant during a study abroad stint in the UK, and it didn't matter if I was in London or LA. What we cooked was still an Americanized, or in my case, Britishized version of the real thing, and most people have no idea how far off it actually is. And the California roll thing wasn't a throwaway line, the name kind of gives it away. Hibachi isn't even the right word for what's happening at a hibachi steakhouse. That's teppanyaki, barely a Japanese tradition itself, but more on that later. This video is personal. Japan's my dream destination. I'm finally planning the trip, and cooking a version of Japanese food during that restaurant stint is what made me fall in love with the real thing and want to actually get it right. So we're going region by region, matching what each place actually grows, catches, and eats to the dishes that define it, with more myth-busting like that along the way. By the end, you'll know enough to order like a local instead of asking for a California roll. Keep an eye out, too. One of these regions wasn't part of Japan until less than 150 years ago. It's near the top of my must-visit list for reasons that'll make sense once we get there. Hokkaido, dairy, barbecue, and a bowl of ramen invented by accident. We start at the top on Hokkaido, Japan's northernmost island, shaped by a subarctic climate, wide-open farmland, and a hunting and gathering history that's rare for Japan. The island was barely settled until the late 1800s, mostly because the winters made rice farming a losing bet. So the food leaned into what worked in the cold instead. Warming, high-calorie, built to last. Take miso ramen, Sapporo's signature dish. Miso is fermented soybean paste, soybeans, salt, water, and a mold called koji, aged until deep and savory. Sapporo shops load their broth with it, then top it with a slick of pork fat, basically an edible way of trapping heat in your bowl. Before the 1950s, ramen in Japan basically meant soy sauce broth. Then a restaurant called Aji no Sanpei started experimenting with miso instead, supposedly after a regular customer asked the chef to just drop noodles straight into their miso soup. Can't confirm that's exactly how it happened, might just be a good bar story, but miso ramen caught on so hard it's now the dish Sapporo's known for worldwide. All that open land also makes Hokkaido Japan's dairy region. Over half the nation's raw milk comes from here, which is why butter, cheese, and that famous soft serve are basically regional staples. The coastline delivers some of the best seafood in the country too. Sea urchin, salmon roe, king crab. Then there's Genghis Khan, or jingisukan, mutton and vegetables grilled on a dome-shaped iron skillet. Nobody's ever nailed down a real connection to Mongolia. The story goes Japanese cooks just liked the image of Mongol soldiers grilling meat on their shields, and ran with the name. Hokkaido's signature soul food, no real logic required. And technically, Hokkaido wasn't part of Japan until 1869, but that's not the region I teased. Keep that in the back of your mind, though. Tohoku, the region that cooks for winter. Head south into Tohoku, 6 prefectures of mountains, farmland, and winters that get brutal even by Japanese standards. Hokkaido might hold the record for harshest climate in the country, but Tohoku isn't far behind. Before modern roads and rail, snowfall here could bury a 2-story building, cutting entire towns off from fresh supplies for months. That isolation is a big part of why Tohoku leaned so hard into tsukemono, pickling and fermentation, as a way to keep eating through a winter when nothing fresh could get in. The upside of all that snow, when it melts, it floods the region with mineral-rich water, perfect for rice and orchards. Aomori grows around 60% of Japan's apples. Yamagata is the country's cherry capital, and Fukushima does the same for peaches. Akita, meanwhile, is the birthplace of kiritanpo, mashed rice packed onto cedar skewers, toasted until it forms a crust, then simmered in a chicken hot pot called nebe. As the story goes, mountain hunters and woodcutters invented it as portable, calorie-dense food they could dip straight into broth or miso soup out in the field. Sushi's a clever way to eat rice. This might be a better one. In Iwate, there's Huanko soba. A server keeps dropping tiny bowls of soba into yours as fast as you can empty them, evolved into a full-blown competitive eating sport, with some people stacking well over 100 bowls in one sitting. Already on my Japan to-do list, I don't lose eating contests often. I'll report back. Sendai, Tohoku's biggest city, is known for gyutan, grilled beef tongue. Local legend says a chef started using tongue American occupation forces threw away after the war. Good story, not quite true. The real chef, Sano Keishiro, sourced it himself from a neighboring prefecture after a French chef introduced him to the cut. Post-war Japan still shaped the dish, just through scarcity, not literal scraps. Tohoku doesn't get much love internationally. It might be Japan's most underrated region. Kanto, Tokyo, and the classic Japanese dishes. Kanto, Japan's most recognizable region, mostly because it's home to Tokyo, and this is where a lot of what people think of as classic Japanese food actually comes from. The climate's temperate, hot summers, cold winters, decent farmland. But farmland alone couldn't keep up with Edo period Tokyo's growth, as thousands of laborers poured in needing food that was fast, portable, and packed with flavor. That pressure is basically why Kanto food tastes the way it does. Dark, salty, built on soy sauce and mirin from the region's own brewing industry. Take edamame sushi, what most people just call sushi. It started as street food in Edo period Tokyo. Fish cured in soy sauce or vinegar so it would survive without refrigeration, pressed onto rice, sold to workers who needed to eat and get back to it. Not a slow 20-course omakase experience. Chef's choice if you've ever wondered what that means. It was lunch. Tempura isn't originally Japanese either. Portuguese traders and missionaries brought fried batter cooking here in the 1500s, and Japanese cooks refined it into something lighter and crisper than the original ever was. Curry rice tells a similar story a few centuries later, and it's the textbook case of wakon yosai. Japanese spirit, Western technique, the whole philosophy behind how Japan takes something foreign and makes it unmistakably its own. The Imperial Japanese Navy adopted a British stew-style curry around 1908 to fight beriberi, a vitamin B1 deficiency crippling sailors on an all-white rice diet. Naval doctors thickened it with flour, poured it over rice instead of bread, and it slowly turned into kare raisu, Japan's ultimate comfort food today. Unlike the hibachi grill at your local American steakhouse, curry rice actually earned its seat at the table. If you're in Kanto, especially Ibaraki, you'll run into natto, fermented soybeans, sticky, stringy, famously divisive. People either grew up eating it every morning or won't get within 10 feet of it. First time I opened the container, the smell hit before anything else. Pungent, earthy, a little like ammonia. I braved it anyway. Turned out coffee nutty, kind of addictive. Natto's now among my favorite Japanese foods. Judge me all you want, but I'd tell you to try it once. There's more where that came from. Tamagoyaki, the sweet rolled omelet, onigiri, unagi, and the first ramen shop in Japan, which opened right here in Tokyo in 1910. Kanto's basically the region every classic Japanese food idea traces back to. Chubu, the food from the Alps, seas, and mountains. Honestly, I didn't know much about this region beyond Shizuoka, mostly because it sits at the base of Mount Fuji. But that's kind of the point of this whole series. Let's dig in. Chubu sits dead center in the country, really 3 regions wearing one name: the coast, the mountains, and Nagoya, a major industrial seaport, sitting in between with a food identity almost nobody outside Japan knows about. Sandwiched between Tokyo and Kyoto, it ended up with one of the most genuinely varied food cultures in the country, just without the name recognition to match. Nagoya's working-class, fast-paced demographic gave rise to its own entire category of food: Nagoya meshi, Nagoya cuisine, and it plays by nobody's rules but its own. Its most famous dish is hitsumabushi, grilled eel over rice, eaten 3 different ways in one sitting, plain first, then with scallions and wasabi, then as a soup with hot tea poured straight over the top. Then there's miso katsu, a regular pork cutlet drowned in thick red miso instead of the usual brown sauce. That red miso is hacho miso, my personal favorite of all the miso types, aged up to 3 years, which is what gives it that deep, almost aggressive umami shorter-aged misos never reach. Head toward the coast and you hit Shizuoka, which grows around 40% of Japan's green tea, more than any other prefecture by a wide margin, and Niigata, where brutal winters and clean snowmelt water make it one of the country's best rice and sake regions. Shizuoka is also one of the only places on Earth that actually grows real wasabi. Chubu doesn't have one signature dish the way some regions do. It's got 3 completely different food identities sharing the same name on a map. Kansai, Japan's culinary destination. Now we move to Kansai, also called Kinki, the cultural and historical heart of Japan, home to Osaka, Kyoto, and Nara. If you're ever visiting Japan for one reason only, to eat as well as humanly possible, this is the region. The climate runs hot and humid in summer, mild in winter, and the food leans into that. Light, fresh, easy to digest, rather than heavy and warming like further north. Osaka's the region's culinary capital, old title too. Tenka no Daidokuro, the nation's kitchen, earned in the Edo period as the country's rice trading hub. These days it's better known for takoyaki, fried octopus balls, and okonomiyaki, a savory pancake people can't stop comparing to pizza. I covered that comparison in my Every Country's Pizza video, Worth a watch after this one. With that much good food around, no wonder Osaka's unofficial motto is Kudare, eat until you bankrupt yourself. Can't argue with it. Kyoto, 40 minutes away, does the exact opposite. This is where kaiseki comes from, a formal, multi-course meal built around seasonal ingredients and precise presentation, and Shojin Ryori, the vegetarian cuisine Buddhist monks built out of a religious restriction on meat and fish. Honestly, this style resonates more with my vegetarian girlfriend than it does with me. Then there's Kobe, home of the world-famous melt-in-your-mouth Wagyu beef, built on genuinely strict grading standards. You've probably heard the stories about cows getting massaged and fed beer for that marbling. Take those with a grain of salt. Great menu story, not exactly verified practice. A lot of Kansai's food, okonomiyaki, Kobe beef, actually gets cooked on that same teppan we mentioned earlier. You've seen it at a hibachi steakhouse, minus the onion volcano and the showmanship. When I worked that section back in the UK, I cooked yakisoba and steaks before eventually getting moved to ramen. Chugoku, weird but exotic. West of Kansai is Chugoku, split down the middle. A mild, sunny south known for citrus and peaches, and a harsher, snowier north, pulling in rich, fatty seafood instead. If you want to start an argument in Japan, here's how. Both Hiroshima and Osaka claim okonomiyaki as their own, and they build it in ways that barely resemble each other. Osaka mixes everything, cabbage, batter, pork, egg, into one bowl before it hits the grill. Hiroshima stacks it in distinct layers, with a full portion of noodles pressed in between, and refuses to call anything mixed batter a real okonomiyaki. Ask someone from either city which version's correct, and watch what happens. Both sound great to me, though I'll admit some bias. The Osaka style is what I make for my girlfriend, and it's her favorite. I get why. Hiroshima is also one of Japan's biggest oyster farming regions, producing around 60% of the country's oysters on its own. Nearby Okinawa is nicknamed the Fruit Kingdom for its white peaches and muscat grapes, sweet enough to be sold individually gift-wrapped instead of by the pound. Shimane Prefecture is known for one of Japan's top soba varieties, Izumo soba, and locals will tell you to eat it right after visiting nearby Izumo Taisha, one of the country's oldest shrines. Tradition says it washes away bad luck. Yamaguchi's known for fugu, the deadly pufferfish. Its toxin is roughly 1,000 times more lethal than cyanide, which is why it's one of the most regulated foods on Earth and requires a specially licensed chef just to prepare it. Would you try the dish of doom? Let me know in the comments. And if food poisoning isn't on your itinerary, Yamaguchi also has kawara soba, green tea noodles served hot, on an actual roof tile. The idea traces back to 1877, during the Satsuma Rebellion, when soldiers besieging Kumamoto Castle grilled wild greens and meat on scavenged roof tiles for lack of real cookware. Decades later, a Yamaguchi innkeeper heard that story and built an entire noodle dish around it, tiles and all. When I visit Japan, this one's non-negotiable. Shikoku, small island but packs a punch. Cross the water to Shikoku, the smallest of Japan's 4 main islands. The Seto inland seaside, the north coast, including Kagawa, gets compared to the Mediterranean for its mild, sunny, low-rain climate, while the Pacific-facing south around Kochi is a different story entirely. Wetter, warmer, typhoon season, and all. Historically isolated enough to build its own religious tradition, the island is home to an 88-temple pilgrimage, a roughly 750-mile route walkers, still complete today. That isolation shaped the food too. Sanuki udon, thick, square-cut wheat noodles in a light, clean broth, is such a big deal that udon hopping between shops has become its own local pastime. Here's the part that sounds made up but isn't. Because the best udon shops are scattered across small towns, Kagawa actually has udon taxis, real drivers trained and tested specifically on Sanuki udon, who will route you through the most efficient noodle crawl possible. Once you know that exists, Udon Prefecture makes a lot more sense as a nickname. In Kochi, there's katsu tataki, bonito quickly seared over an open straw fire left nearly raw in the middle, the sear locking in the umami while keeping the inside tender. Tokushima grows yuzu, the citrus that's quietly taken over high-end menus well outside Japan's borders, and has its own ramen style too, a dark, rich, slightly sweet soy and pork broth, topped with raw egg and sliced pork belly. If you've got a sweet tooth, Matsuyama, the island's biggest city, is known for bachin dango, a tri-colored mochi dumpling in red bean, green tea, and egg flavors. Shikoku's still the only one of Japan's 4 main islands with no bullet train line, and that isolation cuts both ways. The food here stayed largely untouched by mainland trends. If you want the most authentic Japanese cooking in the country, this is where you'd look. Kyushu, the ultimate ramen haven. Kyushu is the southernmost of Japan's main islands, and its subtropical climate, volcanic soil, and closeness to Korea and China have shaped its food more than any other region's geography has. This is where tonkotsu ramen comes from. Hakata tonkotsu, to be precise, the rich, cloudy pork bone broth that's now the most exported ramen style in the world. The origin story is almost too good. In 1947, a food stall owner in Kurume named Katsumi Sugino accidentally let his pork bone soup boil for way too long while he stepped away. He came back to a broth gone thick and milky, completely wrong by his standards. Instead of tossing it, he seasoned it and served it anyway. Customers loved it more than the original. That mistake is the entire reason tonkotsu ramen exists. Contrary to popular belief, ramen isn't a Japanese original. It came from China, entering through port cities like Nagasaki, right here in Kyushu, where Chinese immigrants opened noodle stalls for local dock workers. Honestly, I'm grateful to both countries, China for inventing it, Japan for perfecting it. It's my second favorite dish on the planet. Kyushu isn't just one ramen either. Kumamoto ramen takes the tonkotsu base and adds roasted garlic and sesame oil for something darker and earthier. Kagoshima ramen goes the other way. With a noticeably lighter broth, ramen changes personality by region almost as much as the rest of Japanese food does. Kagoshima, further south, is known for kurobuta, a black-haired pork breed prized for how tender it is, and shochu, a distilled sweet potato spirit completely different from sake, even though people outside Japan mix the two up constantly. Fukuoka gave the country mentaiko, spicy cured pollock roe that shows up on everything from rice to pasta. An accident that became the most copied ramen on earth. That alone should be near the top of this list. It's not, though. The next and final region beats all of it in lifestyle, in diet, in basically everything. Okinawa, the blue zone region that used to be its own country. This is the region I teased at the very start. Okinawa used to be an actual country, separate from Japan entirely. The Ryukyu Kingdom ran its own trade network across Asia for centuries, its own language, its own royal court, fully independent, until Japan formally annexed it in 1879. That history never fully disappeared, and you can taste it the second you land. Okinawan food doesn't look like the mainland at all. Subtropical climate, island geography cut off from the rest of the country, and a food philosophy built on one idea: food as medicine. Okinawa is also one of the world's 5 recognized blue zones, places where people live dramatically longer, healthier lives than the global average, with way more people hitting 100 than almost anywhere on Earth. Sound familiar? Sardinia got that exact same title in the Italy video, and it's not a coincidence. Both are island food cultures built on vegetables, pork in moderation, and slow-cooked meals eaten without the stress most of us eat with. Okinawans also live by harahachibu. Stop eating once you're about 80% full. Healthy doesn't mean bland, though. There's rafute. Pork belly simmered low and slow in awamori, soy, and brown sugar until it falls apart. Awamori is worth knowing on its own, a distilled Okinawan spirit made from Thai rice and black koji, completely different from sake, and it's doing real work in that pot. Tenderizing the meat, killing the gamey smell, building a flavor soy sauce alone can't fake. Then there's Goya champuru, the island's quintessential comfort food, bitter melon stir-fried with tofu, egg, and pork, bitter and rich in the same bite. And then there's taco rice, which is where this whole video comes full circle. In 1984, a restaurant owner named Matsuzo Gibo, working right outside a U.S. Marine base in Kintown, started serving taco seasoned beef over rice, instead of in a shell. Cheaper, more filling, topped with cheese, lettuce, and salsa. It caught on instantly with the Marine station there, and today more Japanese customers order it than American ones. Unlike the hibachi grill we opened with, taco rice is the real thing. An actual dish born from actual cultural contact, not a steakhouse invention built for a Broadway crowd. There's also beni imo, Okinawa's vivid purple sweet potato, packed with antioxidants and fiber, showing up in everything from tarts to soft serve. I've always wanted to visit Okinawa, not just for the food, but for ikigai, the local concept of finding your own reason to get out of bed every morning. If you've been indulging your way across the rest of Japan's food in your head this whole video, Okinawa's the place to end the trip. Reset, eat well, and figure out your own ikigai while you're at it. That's every region of Japan and what it actually eats. 9 regions, 1 country, and almost none of it looks like the Japanese restaurant you grew up ordering from. Tell me in the comments which region you'd fly to first, and if there's another country you want this same treatment, drop it below. I actually read these. One more ask. Would you rather I go deeper on individual regions, A full ramen styles video, one just on Kanto, that kind of thing? Or keep doing full country tours like this one? Genuinely deciding based on what you all say. See you in the next video.